Hello, everyone, and welcome to this afternoon's unemployment webinar. I hope you all were able to take advantage of your Uber Eats lunch. I know maybe in future years we'll be able to do this in person, but for obvious reasons, I know Hawaii, there's not only facing COVID, but also some droughts. So we're being respectful and trying to meet with everyone virtually, but also and hopefully enjoying a lunch. So I hope you are all able to do that. And again, welcome for joining us today. This will be a 30-minute, hopefully we'll keep it to 30-minute presentation on unemployment taxes, a lot of state-specific stuff in Hawaii, and then some general information about nonprofits. I will be emailing you a copy of this presentation at the conclusion. And if you do have questions, we do have a chat box. I am a solo show here, so I don't always see those questions pop up and I'm not always able to address them, but 100% we do store those questions and I can respond to you at the conclusion. So one way or another, you'll get that information. So no further ado, I'm going to go ahead and get started. Again, welcome everyone. And just a real quick introduction of who I am. My name is Heidi Posada, and I am a trust representative at 501c Agencies Trust. And I have been here for 11 years now. So my role here is just really helping nonprofits navigate unemployment, their options, and if we make sense, that's great. If we make sense for you to join, and I also include my doggy here because sometimes he likes to make appearances as we're still working from home. So sometimes Hunter will make an appearance. Hopefully not today, but if you do hear the barking, that's the pup barking in the background. Okay, so just a quick overview of what we will be discussing today. First of all, just how unemployment insurance works, addressing mostly the more common state unemployment, and then talking about 501, the nonprofits that are available, the options that are available to nonprofits, and specifically how the option of reimbursing works. And then I'll just talk about some examples of some savings that we have seen from people that have submitted information. And then I will conclude with just a little bit of information about the benefits of 501c services. So real quick, about 18 months ago, not as many people were talking about unemployment as they are these days. I'm sure you can relate within your own job and discussions that you've had. But it has been a hot topic. But what I like to do here is just talk a little bit about way back when and just give you a little history of unemployment, just to lay a little foundation of how we got to where we are today. There was no unemployment insurance prior to the 1930s. 1930s, as part of the New Deal, I think we're all familiar with our American history classes, but 1930s unemployment began as part of the New Deal and the social services that were set up to address the issues during the Depression. Up until 1972, 501c3 organizations were exempt from providing unemployment. So from the 1930s to 1972, yippee, you work for a nonprofit and you don't have to pay any unemployment insurance, you don't have to pay any reimbursing, you're not paying that expense. The downside is if you are an employee at a nonprofit and you lose your job, no fault of your own, prior to 1972, you did not benefit from the same safety net that for-profit people working in the for-profit sector benefited from. So in 1972, as part of the Social Security Act, Congress, so this is federal law, federal government instituted that now nonprofits would be paying or would have to cover their separated employees. But there was a couple options set because they did not want the tax, they didn't want having to pay unemployment insurance to be a burden and to take away from the mission of nonprofits. So just big picture, how state unemployment works. As I think a lot of you realized earlier this year when Hawaii made some adjustments that I'm going to talk about a little bit later, but each year the state can adjust how you're charged for unemployment. Excuse me. And they can do this in a variety of ways. The state program runs as a risk pool. So that means each year they're putting money in from all over, and whether you have 0 claims or 50 claims, you're paying into that pool, and that money that goes into that pool stays in that pool. You can never take it out. It just stays in that pool, and it's most likely, if you're not using it for your own claims, it's most likely being used by someone else. As we all saw this year, that pool was depleted quite a bit this year by someone, by some people there in Hawaii, and nationwide, of course. And typically, nonprofits are paying more into the pool than they're pulling out. And the way that all states, including Hawaii, calculate SUI is it's a taxable wage base times your employer rate. We're going to talk about all of these numbers a little bit later, but just think of that. It's taxable wages times rate to get what you pay each year for unemployment. And again, it's a very small percentage of organizations or nonprofits make up a small part of the group paying into the pool. And again, nonprofits typically have lower turnover than a lot of the bigger for-profit companies. So in a way, that even though you're only 10%, you tend to be paying a higher portion of your share into that pool. And one impact of, I just like to talk about how COVID has impacted the pool. As you are probably well aware, Hawaii, I think, went 700 million in the debt, maybe a little bit more than that now. And I know they've made some adjustments to the pool, but the unemployment expense can impact a tax-paying nonprofit for 3 to 5 years because they look back over past years. So even if your tax rate, maybe because of adjustments they've made this immediate year, wasn't impacted dramatically, it's likely to impact for the next few years. In a good economy, the replacement rate is $1.28. So that means if you have, for every $1 of claims you're paying out, you're normally paying $1.28 into that pool. So you're already overpaying by over 25%. In the last recession, we saw that jump to $2.04. So it's really hard to guess because I know there's been a lot of support replenishing the pools. Hawaii's made some adjustments, so it's hard to guess if we're going to have a replacement cost that high. But I do know a lot of, I've worked with a lot of Hawaii nonprofits already this year that did have a big jump, even with the support from the state this year. So here's just a little quiz time, let's think about what's going on. What can a single claim in Hawaii cost? And this does impact the tax rate that you pay. Right now, it can cost as much as $16,614. And again, the higher your claims are, the higher your rate's going to be. So a quick overview specifically of Hawaii. The maximum weekly benefit is $639. That's how we come up with that total benefit over 26 weeks, how much that can cost you. The taxable wage base is one of the highest in the country at $47,400. So what that means is any individual making $0 to $47,400, you're paying taxes on, the tax rate on that. If an employee makes over that, once they hit the $47,400, you're no longer paying a tax on their wages. So if you're an organization or an industry that has a lot of part-time or a lot of seasonal workers, you end up paying a little bit higher portion because a lot of your employees are probably under that wage base. So you're paying your tax rate 100% of the salary. Currently, the minimum tax rate is 0.2% and the maximum tax rate is 5.8%. And we also have another interesting percent, which is the improper payment rate, and that is at 3.9%. That is actually pretty low compared to the nationwide average, but that is 3.9% error rate. So if you don't have the ability to audit your claims or really review the claims, make sure that former employees are receiving their correct weekly benefit amount based on their base period with you, your organization could be overpaying due to that 3.9% overpayment. And how that translates, again, that your the rate in Hawaii is pretty low compared to some other states. But what that translates to is in 2020, the overpayment was almost $5 million. So if you think of how many claims you had as an organization, is it possible that you overpaid? And if you overpay, how is that going to impact your tax rate? Because it's basically unemployment's like a car accident. If the more claims you have, the higher your rate's going to go. So I do want to touch a little bit. I know there's so much COVID related updates when it comes to unemployment. Most organizations, just to touch real quickly, most people are aware of the CARES Act and some different assistance that was available specifically to reimbursing employers. The CARES Act helped pay for 50% of all claims during 2020, and then I believe in all states it increased to 75% in 2021. So there was assistance for those organizations that were reimbursing. For the tax, I think a lot of people, a lot of Hawaiian organizations had a little fear at the beginning of the year when the state went from Schedule C, which your rate could be anywhere from 0 to 5.6%, to Schedule H. It was an automatic trigger in the state that made all rates go from 2.4 to 6.6%. So for some organizations that were paying 0.1 or 0.2% to go all the way up to 2.4, it was a pretty huge jump in what they were paying for unemployment. Luckily, the state did come and adjust that, so you're now on Schedule D, which is 0.2% to 5.8%. And the state did borrow money from the federal government and has used some of the COVID relief funds to repay the more than $1 billion that were borrowed during COVID. So the good news is the pool might not be completely depleted, or it might not be too far in the hole, but there is, it's very likely that they're going to have to build it back up so that they've got some reserves in there. So it seems that paying taxes, especially if you don't have many claims and you're, being burdened by a lot of claims that other organizations have had, it might be interesting to look at alternatives. And there is one unique alternative for 501c for 501c nonprofits. One option is, of course, the pay the state, which I just discussed, and another option is to self-insure or reimburse. And then a third option is to kind of combine the two, and you can go self-insuring but purchase insurance on top of that. So if you're super risk adverse but see a great savings in self-insuring, you could certainly buy insurance and to manage your unemployment. So a little bit about reimbursing, and it's funny, we do say it's not for everyone. We do really recommend that everybody evaluate this option. We believe it's really good for many nonprofits. That's why we work with about 1,500 nonprofits nationwide. First, you do have to be a 501c3 nonprofit. I every once in a while get a C4 or a C6 or something like that. This is a benefit or an option that's available only to the 501c3. So religious institutions and certain other 501cs are not eligible, but a C3 is, which I believe everyone that enrolled today is a 501c3. We really recommend that you have a payroll of $1 million or more. If it's a borderline, we can certainly still look at it. We always like to do a evaluation and a positive audit of the past 3 years. So we want to make sure that you're paying more into that pool than you are paying out of claims. So how reimbursing works. The greatest thing is your tax rate goes from, what was it, 0.2% at the lowest, maybe 5%. Your organization now has a 0% tax rate. So you are no longer paying into the state pool. And instead you are paying dollar for dollar for your unemployment claims. The process is very seamless for separated employees. And so instead of being a CFO or an HR director or a CEO that's sitting there really feeling like you kind of have no control over what you're paying for unemployment, especially when we see things like Hawaii going from Schedule C to H or whatever that was, you do have an option to just manage this, manage your unemployment costs in a different way. And in most cases, we do see that it's a pretty significant savings. The average, it can be anywhere from 20 to 40%. And again, a great way to avoid those tax hikes that even though the state, like I said, has used some federal funds to pay back, to replenish the pool, it is likely that there will be more to come, because not only do they want the negative balance paid back, but they definitely want to build some reserves. So it's likely that the tax rates will continue where they are, if not increase in the future. And like I said, this is through the federal government. This option 2 reimburses through the federal government. So we estimate there's nowhere that we know that we can actually look up who is reimbursing versus who's paying taxes, but we estimate about 10,000 nonprofits are currently reimbursing. And like I said, about 1,500 of those are reimbursing with 501c agencies trust. So a lot of things you want to consider when you become a reimbursing employer, and one is kind of the highs and lows of unemployment. I was just working with one organization from Hawaii, and I think their biggest year of the last 3 years was actually 3 years ago, where they had $35,000 in unemployment. And this most recent year, 2020, they actually had $0 in claims. So one thing that you really want to think about when you're reimbursing is that you have money set aside that you build reserves to help manage your the highs and lows of unemployment. A way that you can do this is outsource to a company like 501c agencies trust. And another option is to purchase you insure, which is unemployment insurance, to help mitigate the risk of reimbursing, but also provide the savings and avoid those the taxes that Hawaii might institute to increase your unemployment. So I like to share a few examples of how savings and how the SUI is calculated. First of all, in Hawaii, it is the federal minimum. So our company is based in California. We are actually the federal minimum of $7,000 taxable wage base. As you can see, Hawaii is significantly higher at $47,400. And then tax rates are it's a calculation based on your reserves. So the higher money you've paid into the pool, the lower your tax rate's going to be. But that also means the more money you've overpaid. So if you have $50,000 in your reserve account, that means you've overpaid $50,000 and you're still paying into that. And then so this means if we look at that, the taxable wage base times the tax rate, you're paying as much as $95 per employee all the way up to almost $2,750 per employee. So even at $100, that's that's an expense I think we'd all love to eliminate if we can. So one example of one that we recently did, an organization that had a taxable payroll of $964,000 and their tax rate was 4.7%. And we looked at their 3-year average of claims and they had about $200 in claims. So by looking at all these numbers, they had estimated unemployment taxes of $45,000 and only claims of $198. So they were every year overpaying $45,000. So that means every year that $45,000 goes and sits in that reserve account and they can't take it out. That goes into the pool, again, probably used by organizations that have a lot higher unemployment. So the goal of becoming a reimbursing employer is to stop paying that overpayment. And just another quick, this was an SPCA we looked at. Their taxable payroll was a little over $700,000 with the tax rate at 3.4%. So the estimated taxes that we looked at were about $24,000 and compared to 3-year average of claims of $5,900. So again, this organization was looking at $18,000 of savings, and this is an every year savings. So that can add up real fast. Some good puppies we can be saving with that $18,000. So that's just a couple of examples that we have. Now, I know I don't have a whole lot of time, but I do want to just very briefly talk about 501c services and the benefits that our members are receiving by participating in our program. We were founded in 1982, so just 10 years after the option of reimbursing started. We were founded by a UCP executive, and he was looking at ways to help organizations save money and came up with, he also had an insurance background, so he was looking for a way for his UCP to save money. He was also looking at avoiding risk, and that's how he came up with developing the trust. We started with about 25 members in Silicon Valley, San Jose, California, and have grown significantly since then to about 1,500 in the trust and working with another 1,500 through our other services. We are the first of the kind grantor trust, and just a little tidbit of information I like to share is that we did become 100% employee owned in 2016. So which I think our turnover at our company is very low. People that work with us are always working with the same people, and the staff here are very engaged and committed to the mission of our company. So briefly, I will talk about just how we are helping, and especially, like I said, the last 18 months. Prior to that, a lot of people, unemployment wasn't so much on the radar. It certainly is now. So a great service that we offer is claims management, and we work with a company who has, after evaluating a lot of different options, the best software for managing unemployment. So we've got a great software available for you. We also have unlimited hearing reps. So if you do want to protest a claim, you have access to a hearing rep. But just really phenomenal resources for you. If you get an unemployment claim, you have, like I said, a great tool for managing the claim, as well as resources, people to help you answer any questions you might have about the claim, the cost of the claim, and anything else that comes around with claims management. The second, another service that we offer is HR services, and these are it's a whole scope of services, from an HR hotline to a knowledge library. So a lot of resources available. I travel a lot with some of the people that work in the HR services, and what they always say when they're talking to people is, we're not replacing an HR department by any means, but we are another tool in the toolbox. So especially during the last 18 months, I think people have really realized the value of having the answers that they can provide just a phone call away, of course, or the FAQs that were available on our website. They were able to create some town hall meetings within 2 weeks of the massive closures in mid-March of last year. So they were able to provide some phenomenal knowledge resources for our members when they were scrambling to figure out what everything meant and what was going on. Reemployment is a service that we offer for all of our members. So if you do find yourself in a position that you have to let someone go or terminate for any reason, you can offer them this reemployment package. So if you've ever yourself been unemployed or looking for a job, I think you can imagine how useful this resource is. It includes access to one-on-one coaching, online resources, helping with resume writing. And we have some great success stories from some of our members who did have to let people go, and those people were able to, some of them transition careers entirely. So, and the good news for our members is if we can get someone that you let go back to work quicker, that's a win for our members because they're paying fewer weeks of benefits. And we also offer insurance. I've mentioned this a few times, but we have, our company offers probably, I'm pretty confident when I say this, the greatest level of options when it comes to insurance. So we do have a group stop loss that most of our members take advantage of, but then we also have other layers of protection. So if there was ever a need to look into insurance, if you wanted to reimburse but wanted some extra layer of protection, it is here for you. And the last one is we are a grantor trust. We are, and that trust has our members unemployment savings, basically. So our members, almost all of them, put a little bit of money aside and build a reserve over time. Unlike the state pool, where it sits in the pool and is used by other organizations or companies, your reserves belong to you, so you can negotiate what you put in the reserve account. You can withdraw it if you ever feel it's too high, or if you have an emergency and need to take money out. That money can be used for that. But for the most part, the money in the savings account is there to pay for your unemployment claims. And one really great thing is a lot of our members, a huge percent of our members, actually had enough money in their reserve account to cover this past year of COVID claims. So it's a great benefit to have to plan ahead and to have that savings available. So if I've piqued your interest, and if you are either reimbursing on your own and you've been pounding your head and you would just love some extra support, I would love to talk with you about the services we offer. If you're paying taxes and want, either you've been banging your head also, or you just want to see if you can benefit from some of those savings, again, I'd love to have an opportunity to see what we can do for you. All I need is payroll, and if you are paying taxes, your tax rate notice. So I've got a sample of a tax rate notice here, and if you are interested, we can certainly get the ball rolling. You have until the end of November if you're paying taxes to make any changes. So I I don't know about you, the year has been flying by for me, so November is going to be here before we know it. So if this is something of interest to you, love to get started looking at it as soon as possible. Again, I will be emailing you a copy of this presentation. It looks like I'm right at 12:30, so I've hit my 30 minutes. I don't want to take any more of your time, but definitely, I hope you enjoyed your lunches. I hope you were able to take advantage of those coupons. And if you do have any questions, I'll be reaching out to everyone in the next couple of days. And if you do have any questions, I can help address them then. And that's it for me. Thank you.